Republican Senator Marco Rubio is on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, also on the Intel Committee as well. How are you, Senator, and good morning.
I'm well, Bill.
Good morning to you. What do you, or how would you characterize, this back and forth? Senator McCain said at one point it was the trifecta, Middle East, Syria, and Russia.
I think he's right. He's right on point. You saw a moment ago Secretary Kerry talk about the peace talks with Palestinians and Israelis. It is dead, and here's a couple reasons why. It's not the Israelis' fault. The Israelis want peace more than anybody. The problem is that the Palestinian and the Palestinian Authority has done nothing to condition its own people for any sort of peace negotiation. You still have an educational system, for example, in the West Bank that talks openly and teaches children to hate Jews and to hate Israelis. So how are you going to negotiate peace when that authority has done absolutely nothing to condition their people and prepare them for any sort of peaceful coexistence? So I would say to you that on this issue, no one wants peace more than the Israelis, but it's not going to come at the expense of their security. And that's why these talks are a failure, and that's why, quite frankly, the pressure that this administration is putting on Israel to enter into a negotiation is going to prove to be counterproductive and negative for Israel.
Well, I know Senator Kerry's not going to stop. Secretary Kerry, pardon me, will not stop. He's going to continue to fly around the world and try and make things happen. Maybe there's a different way to phrase this question. What is the greatest foreign policy accomplishment, do you believe, of this current administration in 5.5 years?
Well, and I think that question was asked yesterday, and Secretary Kerry outlined all sorts of things on Mali. And then, look, there's been successes, including some that they've inherited, like, for example, the prevention of the spread of HIV in Africa, a program that began under President Bush, and this president has continued. But I think on the issues of national security around the world, we are less safe today than we were when President Obama took office. In Asia, our allies are increasingly unsure about our ability to counter both North Korea and Chinese expansionism. In Europe, you've begun to see real tests of the NATO alliance given Russia's aggressiveness. In Latin America, you've seen the retreat of democratic order. Obviously, Iran is closer today than they've ever been to being a nuclear weapons power. In fact, the U.S. has apparently agreed to allow them the capability to enrich. And Al-Qaeda has now spread to 14 different countries and is actively continuing to plot attacks against U.S. interests around the world and here in the homeland. Other than that, things are going well, I suppose. Well,
I mean, with all due respect, that sounds like a dreadful grade. I mean, that's
we're in
a horrendous report card.
It is, and we're in a dreadful spot because if you understand what this Obama administration's approach to foreign policy, it's not based on truth. It's based on wishful thinking. It's based on theories that if the U.S. somehow stepped back from the global stage and became more of a junior partner in all of these endeavors, that the world would become more stable. In fact, what it's done, this step back, is created a vacuum, and the vacuum has been filled by tyrants like China, Russia, Iran, Al-Qaeda, and others who are trying to fill that void with their own ambitions and with their own desires at the expense of the free world.
Let's talk politics now. Jeb Bush, the former governor of your home state in Florida, the other day was talking with our own Shannon Bream about illegal immigrants in America. He said, yes, they broke the law, but it's not a felony. It's an act of love. Do you agree with him?
What that comment does is it shines light into what a difficult issue this is. So on the one hand, there is a rule of law issue here. We are a sovereign country. We have a right to enforce our immigration laws. Every country in the world has immigration laws. Mexico has immigration laws, and they enforce it. And we can't simply ignore those laws or not, and from a matter not just of sovereignty, but of national security. On the other hand, there is a human component to this. Many of the people who find themselves in this country illegally did so because they are desperate to provide for their families, and the United States provides that opportunity. And so balancing those two things is what makes this issue such a tough one. And so that's why I continue to say that the best way forward on this is to reform our legal immigration system, to create real enforcement mechanisms that are in place, are verifiable, and then people trust. And if we do those two things, then I think we're going to have both the political and the policy space to realistically and responsibly deal with those who are here illegally now.
Let me just phrase an act of love. Do you see it the same way?
Well, listen, everybody who's here illegally is different. There are some people that come here illegally to take advantage of our system. There are others who didn't plan to stay but overstayed their visas. And then there are those who come to this country because they are desperate to provide a better life for their children. And certainly among that population, and it's a significant number of people, we have to be compassionate and humane, and our heart goes out to them. We have to balance that, however, with the need to have enforcement of our immigration laws. And again, that's why this issue is such a tough balancing. But I think what he was calling attention to is the human element element of immigration, and the fact that there are millions of people in this country who did violate our immigration laws, but they did so because they desperately want to provide their families a better future.
Okay.
And I think what it does is it compels us to do something to fix this issue and prevent this problem from existing in the future.
More on this next time we talk. I appreciate your time.